All right, Nuggets fans, welcome into Pickaxe and Roll, brought to you by our good friends here at Mile High Sports. I am your host, Ryan Blackburn, NBA Blackburn on Twitter, part of the Mile High Sports Podcast Network, and I am here. I've had a bloody nose for the past half hour, so hopefully we can get through the show, but we will see what happens, and hopefully nothing crazy happens at this point. I had a bloody nose, and the Nuggets had a bloody massacre last night in Game 2 against the OKC Thunder. What an ugly loss for them. 149-106 was the final score. I believe the number was 87 points that they gave up in the first half. Obviously, if you double that, you're pacing for 174. So defense really locked in that second half. But they gave up the most points in NBA playoff history in the first half of that game to an opponent. That's a crazy number, frankly. And I'm trying to figure out whether it matters or not. I think a lot of Nuggets fans are trying to figure out whether it matters or not because, again, you kind of didn't expect to go 2-0 in OKC. Why would anybody expect to go 2-0 in OKC? Because, I mean, holy cow, the first game was unbelievable. They won. They earned a lot of credit with that one. But the second game was almost as bad as you could possibly ask for. They clearly were not locked in from the jump. Christian Brown missing wide open threes. Jamal Murray clearly not fully dialed, I would say. Aaron Gordon really struggling around the rim, and Nikola Jokic fouls out in this game in the late third quarter. Scott Foster masterclass. Let's go. But I'm trying to figure out, and I know Nuggets fans are also trying to figure this out too. How much does it matter that you lose by 43? It doesn't feel good. That's for sure. If you're a Nuggets fan, you're probably wondering, why can't Denver win by 43 every now and then? Whenever Denver goes up by 35, they always get it back down to 20. But no, that's not the case. OKC is a beast, man. OKC was always going to be great. And it's not a surprise to me that OKC was able to come back in this one and make it more disruptive. So we'll talk about it all. We're going to talk about the poor first quarter, the unreliability of having to wait on the refs to call the right game because clearly they did not in the game last night. It was not the reason why Denver lost quite plainly, but also very disruptive. Also something that Denver had to try to manage, and clearly we're on the losing end of that battle as well. We'll talk about that. We'll talk about just the fact that Denver was clearly okay with a split. They're never going to say that out loud, but they were. It was pretty clear based off of how hard they played and what they tried to do. Okay, so the Thunder did what they needed to do in this one to get back, and they did it in the first quarter. Denver went down 45-21 in the first quarter. A bunch of open misses from Christian Brown. Jamal Murray missed a couple. Michael Porter missed a couple. Aaron Gordon missed several under the rim. And Jokic also just being bothered, but he wasn't necessarily super aggressive, I would say, in the first quarter. There were a couple of possessions that he had, but Jokic also started the game 2 of 7. So not his best starts. And certainly when that comes with everybody else also starting like crap. Denver scored 21 points in the first quarter, and that was basically it. But it wasn't it because of the offense. It was it because of the defense, because they allowed 45 points in the first quarter and then followed it up with allowing 42. And then in the third quarter, they allowed 37. If you allowed 87 points in the entire game, everybody would be like, wow, what amazing defense. But that wouldn't be surprising, right? It wouldn't be that crazy to see a team in the playoffs allow just 87. It would be a great game, but this was at half. This was an aggressive game by the Nuggets. I mean, hell, they allowed 149, but through three quarters, they allowed 124. Like the defense just wasn't there. The aggressiveness wasn't there. The willingness and the want to clearly wasn't there. I've given Jokic a lot of credit when he is locked in on the defensive end. Clearly, that wasn't the case in this one. OKC just got wherever they wanted to go. And it's not all Jokic's fault. Like he's being attacked in a lot of these different situations, but OKC just shot the ball extremely well. 56% from the field, 44% from three, 92% from the line. They shot 33 of 36. That is a crazy number. And one that, yeah, if you're Denver, you just had to adapt in that situation. Yeah, they're calling a few more touch fouls. They are not necessarily going to let you get away with some of the physicality that you played with in the first game. Jokic clearly frustrated by those calls, trying to figure out how to walk that line and couldn't figure it out. But OKC was the team that adjusted, and then it felt like the game, like on the fly, was kind of adjusting a little bit. OKC was allowed to have more contact as the game went along, in large part because they were up 30 points. Like that's sometimes just how it goes. When you establish just how much better you are within a game, sometimes the refs follow suit, man. It's not malicious. It's not like evil. But I do think that it was pretty ugly from Denver's perspective, and they just did not adjust in any way, shape, or form. Yeah, it was unfortunate, but like, look, the refs are not the reason that the Nuggets lost the game. The reason they lost was because SGA had 34 points on 13 shots, 11 of 13 from the field, did go 11 of 11 from the free throw line, but was just dialed in. And Denver, even when SGA wasn't getting to the paint, everybody else was, and they shot over Denver on a consistent basis. 13 of 13 from the paint, from in the restricted area, according to Cleaning the Glass. And I believe the number was 15 of 23 on short mid-range shots as well. OKC was just very effective and efficient. And when they weren't getting those shots, they were getting fouled. And they then made all their free throws. And sometimes, like, look, you go 31 assists to 9 turnovers if you're OKC. Denver had 18 assists to 20 turnovers. This is the second game in a row where Denver's turnover issues really hurt them. But the difference here was that Denver's finishing on the interior, like they shot just 36% on twos in this game. And that's never going to get you anywhere. Like Denver shot 40% from three and it didn't matter because they shot 36% on twos. You can go down the list, by the way. Jokic shot 4 of 12. Michael Porter, Jamal Murray, and Christian Brown combined to go 1 of 8 on 2-pointers. And Aaron Gordon went 1 of 9 by himself. And I get it. Like you're trying to figure out how to score around the rim when the refs are allowing certain things, when they're not allowing certain things. Jokic got called for offensive fouls on screening fouls, trying to free up space. And it's just pretty clear that Denver was completely out of whack, completely out of focus, trying to figure out how to deal with those layers of calls. So it's going to be interesting to see whether something like this turns like into something more. But I don't really think that there's much. And getting comments like it's pointless analyzing. The Nuggets took the game off for obvious reasons. Yeah, they did. They were clearly okay with a split. But it's okay to talk about why it happened and what actually happened. Denver at this point, like, I do think that is a large part of the analysis. I'm not going to lie that Denver was clearly okay with a split. They were clearly a team that was willing to give this one up because they had won miraculous fashion. And it wasn't like Denver was going into this series thinking, oh, yeah, we need to get 2 of them in OKC. They were not doing that. It's hilarious. Like, this ride kind of reminds me of the Lakers Warriors series. People aren't going to remember that one that well, but 2 years ago, the Lakers went into Golden State, I believe. Yeah, they were. Golden State was the 6th seed, I believe, and Lakers were the 7th. And they went into San Francisco and got game 1. And then they lost. It was pretty bad. Then they won games 3 and 4. And then they lost game 5. And then they won game 6. They won all the games at home after stealing the first road game. And it felt pretty clearly like Denver wanted to follow that track in particular. They did their work in the first game 1. And I don't necessarily disagree with the way that they are trying to go about it, because Denver can't beat OKC straight up in 4 games in a row. Like that's not how this is going to go. They don't have the energy, they don't have the willpower, they do not have the talent, frankly, to do it 4 times in a row. OKC won 68 games. They've lost 2 games in a row just twice in their entire regular season, and now in the playoffs as well. They do not lose a bunch of games. So Denver has to be strategic in how and where they apply some of these games. They're going to have to get lucky a little bit. They're not going to just beat OKC straight up. That's not how this is going to go. And so you give up game 2. It's a road game. You're not necessarily needing it at this point. But Denver did what they had to do in game 1. They got that one. And now I think you come home and you try to get games 3 and 4. And if you can go back to OKC up 3-1, then you feel a lot differently. Now, that logic, of course, falls apart if Denver's not able to take care of business at home. And it would not surprise me in the slightest if this thing is 2-2 going back to OKC, or even 1-3 going back to OKC. I think the least likely outcome is Denver winning both home games because OKC is that talented. So it's going to be interesting to see what they can do. Remember that I said that, by the way, because if Denver's up 3-1, you're welcome. You're welcome at the end of that. But I just think that the Nuggets, if they are going to win this series, have to be very smart. And getting starters out in the third quarter in this one would have been a smart move. Adelman, like, he looked in the locker room, according to him from last night, and said, "You know what? These guys have a lot of attitude. They have a lot of pride, and so that's why he played them in the third quarter." I'm not sure that's entirely why. I'm not sure it was a great idea to play them, but maybe they figure some stuff out. Maybe they figured some things that they have to do, some things that they have to go to because they're out there in the third quarter of game 2. I don't really get it. I don't really understand it. I'll have to have that explained to me at some point. But yeah, Denver did not deserve, like, the starters, based off of the effort that they put in the first half, did not really deserve to be out there again in the second half. Yet they were, and Jokic kind of fouled himself out in a lot of ways. Some of the calls were debatable, not going to lie, but he kept going to the well. He kept trying to be physical, and I just don't think the refs were having it. Clearly not. Are there any other takeaways from this actual game? Russell Westbrook had a decent game off the bench, 19 points in 22 minutes, 5 of 11 from the field, 8 of 10 from the free throw line is pretty good. He was 1 of 5 from 3 in the first game, 1 of 4 in this game. So that's at least something to monitor. It's only 2 of 9 from 3 in both games. Christian Brown was hesitating up a storm for the entire game. He was only 1 of 4 from 3 in the last 3 that he hit. I think it was the last shot that he took, and it was well after the game was over. He has to stop hesitating. Like, the goal for OKC is to get him to shoot the ball. And if he believes in his 3-point shooting, he has to shoot the ball. Like, this is kind of how the KCP role went on several times in the last couple of years for Denver, where the ball finds its way to KCP And if you were the opposing team, you just had to live with it. It wasn't like a great thing, but it was something that you had to live with because the other options were not very good for you. Now, if you're Denver and if you're Christian Brown, the opposing team is trying to get you to shoot the ball because it's something that they can live with. Are you going to allow them to like make that good? Like Christian needs to shoot the ball at a high level. He needs to be more consistent. He has the ability to do so. Clearly, these last couple of games, it hasn't really translated, but we will see what it looks like at home, where he was shooting extremely confidently the last time in game 7. So, very curious to see what it looks like. Murray was not super involved in this game. Porter looked pretty bad. In the next segment, we're going to talk about the Michael Porter situation. But also Aaron Gordon looked like 1 of 9 on twos is really bad. And Gordon just could not finish around the rim. The entire Nuggets team could not finish around the rim, as I mentioned. I believe while OKC shot 13 of 13 in the restricted area, the Nuggets shot 2 of 12. That's insane. Like, that's just an insane stat. So is that something that they can fix? Absolutely. They can finish a little bit better than they did. So we'll see whether they do. All right, let's take a break. When we come back, we are going to chat about Michael Porter, Russell Westbrook, and some of the adjustments that the Nuggets can make in Game 3. We'll be right back here on Pickaxe and Roll. All right, we are back. Pickaxe and Roll. Ryan Blackburn here. Thank you so much for tuning into the show. Got a pounding headache after that bloody nose, so apologies if I'm not at peak form right now. Holy cow. It was long playoffs, long season, doing my best as one does, just getting through and trying to provide as good of content as I can during this stretch. If you guys are interested in some of the reading or some of the writing that I've been doing, been putting out a lot of more in-depth content that includes more stats than some of the podcast content that I've been doing. So the previews that I do every game, those include a variety of numbers and insights that I think are valuable, that I'm able to think about a little bit more than for the podcast purposes. So make sure to check it out at milehighsports.com. Also, make sure to check out number 38. I was just there for the pregame show last night. Really great vibe, really great energy. The chicken parm sandwich that I had while I was there last night. Holy cow, was it good? So, like, there's a lot of great opportunities out there if you're looking to just watch the game in Denver. Number 38 is a great place to go. You can have the bar vibe, but you can also lounge and hang out and have some good food and drinks and with your friends. So make sure to check it out. Number 38 in Rhino. All right. Let's talk about Michael Porter, who in the first game was pretty bad. 1 of 8 from the field, 0 of 3 from 3. Did not close that game, played about 24 minutes. In this game, he played 25, 2 of 10 from the field, 2 of 8 from 3, 2 of 2 from the free throw line. Did get 5 rebounds, but also not super impactful rebounds, I would say. 1 steal, 3 fouls, minus 25. His plus minus was actually not as bad as the rest of the teams. Even Russell Westbrook was minus 30. But Christian Brown minus 40. Murray minus 34. Jokic minus 36. Gordon minus 36. So, like, Porter, his plus minus was bad. But in large part, it was because everybody else's plus minus was bad too. Okay. So Denver has a couple of choices here that they've probably got to make. I don't think that Adelman's going to change the starting lineup. That's not something that I think is really viable. And I don't think that there's much of a reason to do it in this particular instance, because Denver, of course, needs the spacing. They need somebody that they can trust out there to hit some threes when they need to. Denver has not been able to run in transition that much, and they have not been able to find Michael Porter that much in comfortable places. Although in game two, Michael Porter did have several opportunities to just hit open shots, and he bricked them. Like, I watching the game, it's pretty wild sometimes that, like, yeah, it took him a little bit to get going. He finally did get going in the third quarter, but for a while, I think he was like 0 of 5, 0 of 6 in the game. And Denver needs him to be better than that. They just do. And the reason is unfair. It's because they don't have other options. They like the other options that they have, Russell Westbrook, who is 6'3", 6'4". They have Peyton Watson, who in theory should be the option. And honestly, like, Peyton's shooting the ball well enough and has been shooting it well enough consistently in this playoffs that maybe getting him more options is and more minutes is not the worst thing in the world. He was only -9 in this game, but particularly because he played 15 minutes, he played half of the fourth quarter. So, like, some of that was garbage time, I get. But it just to me seemed like I just don't know if the team trusts him in that situation. Like, whether it's the right move or not for Peyton Watson to be out there, I think is irrelevant. What is relevant is who the Nuggets, who Jokic, who Murray, who Gordon, who Christian Brown, who those guys trust in this moment, and who they are comfortable with in crunch time. And they're comfortable with Michael Porter and Russell Westbrook for two different reasons. With Mike, you know you're going to get spacing. You know you're going to get a guy who at 6'10" can rebound, can do some of the things you're wanting to do. But he has to deliver on that front, and he hasn't been delivering so far. And with Russ, he did deliver in the first game in game one and has been delivering for much of these playoffs. So he has been getting a lot of the run. He's been getting a lot of the closing minutes. It has felt very Bruce Brown-esque with Russell Westbrook, kind of a supercharged version of that from a playmaking standpoint and from a production standpoint. But really what you're talking about is somebody who just fills in the gaps, who does the things that really help out on the fringes. Mike is compromised from a physical standpoint. It's pretty clear that he is hurt. He is being impacted by the injury. Could he be better if he didn't have an injury? Absolutely. Not necessarily the issue, although, so yeah, it's tough. Like, I need to go back and look at the exact date of when he got hurt, when game two was. I think it was like, well, let me not speculate. 4/21. So it was April 21st. Today is May 8th. So that is about 18 days ago. It's about 2.5 weeks ago for when Michael Porter got hurt. But the problem is like he would be, it's like a 4 to 6 week injury at that general range, about a month maybe. And that would be with rest. That would be with not really playing. That would be with careful rehabilitation. Denver's not going to be getting that. So the version of Michael Porter that they are getting for the rest of these playoffs is going to be a compromised version. It's going to be somebody who, like, you hope, you're just hoping and praying that can make the shots, can tough it out, can do the things that are asked of him. And like, you give him a ton of credit, and we should continue to give him a ton of credit, because sticking it out and playing through that level of pain, like, very few people would be able to do that, let alone want to do that. Mike has done it, and he has done it pretty consistently. So he deserves a ton of credit. But the Nuggets also just need to win games, and they need to put themselves into the best position to succeed. And so if he were to get benched in terms of like not playing heavy minutes, not being out there at the beginning of games, things like that, it would kind of surprise me, because David Adelman is an interim head coach and he's not somebody that's going to make major changes unless Denver, like, I think the only situation where I could see it really happening is if Denver lost both of the next two games and Denver went down 3-1 going back to OKC. Then at that point, you might consider making a Hail Mary change, a substitution, whether it's probably Russell Westbrook in that situation. You just play your best five-man lineup as much as possible. But it has been interesting to watch. Denver has a bunch of reasons to hold off on that for as long as possible. One of them is that Michael Porter is a dangerous player who can get hot at home, who can do a lot of the things that the Nuggets want him to do. And so we'll see whether he actually does. We'll see whether he can, but that's something that I'm going to be monitoring. In terms of other things that they need to get right for game 3, I'm going to say just defending without fouling has to be a major thing. And then they have to get these turnovers under control. 20 turnovers in this game. Jokic had 6. A fair few of them were offensive foul turnovers. There was one where Christian Brown, by the way, committed an offensive foul, a screening foul in the backcourt. Like he was trying to set a little rub screen, and immediately that went the other direction. And I'm just like, okay, come on. This is the playoffs, man. This is supposed to be a physical environment where like it just wasn't conducive of playoff basketball. I will say that. Denver got taken out of their element, and I wonder if they can get back into that. I wonder what the rest of these playoffs look like. Is it going to be another Scott Foster game in game 7? Is it going to be a Mark Davis game? Are Nuggets fans really going to be pining for a Mark Davis game? Like that's are we at that stage of our relationship with the referees? That's going to be crazy. But I do think that this is going to be a very fascinating game 3, because if Denver can win it, it puts all the pressure back on OKC again, because they can't go down 3-1. If Denver loses in game 3, then all of the pressure is officially on Denver. I think it's kind of split right now, because 1-1 is a very large pivot for where things could go from here. Is Denver going to show that, yeah, it's fine that they had a 43-point loss because they're going to win the close games? Or is it going to be more of the same? Is OKC going to win by 12 because their margins are that large? And Denver's going to be wondering, hey, what do we do now? I think that there's at least a world where that happens. And part of it is like, yeah, virtual reality says here, Nuggets are the underdogs. Don't forget. Absolutely. Like I picked the Thunder. I picked the Thunder in 6, and I think I would probably stick with that at this point. But the game 1 win for Denver was so good and so positive that it kind of shook my line of thinking on that. But then again, like Thunder in 6 means that Denver does win 2 games. So how and where they win those 2 games is very interesting, is very important. And we will see what it looks like from here and what actually affects it. But I'm curious to see how it goes, curious to see what it looks like for Denver. And I'm excited to find out with all of you. So I don't really have anything more. This was a game where there's not a lot of major takeaways that you can have. The only thing, yeah, I don't know. This guy says locked on Nuggets, but Thunder in 6. Yeah, I look. I understand why people are upset with me for picking against the Nuggets. I'm just trying to be accurate. I'm trying to share what I think is going to happen. And there were a lot of things that were pointing me in the direction that the Nuggets could take it, but a lot of it was also wishful thinking based off of a team in Denver that I know is hurt. Michael Porter can't really lift his shoulder. And while Jokic is good for 2 games. So it's going to be interesting to see whether Jamal Murray or Michael Porter or Aaron Gordon or Christian Brown, if those guys can add another win to that tally over the course of this series. Jokic delivered a 42-22 game in game 1, a masterclass, I'd say. Can somebody else put together a great game in this series to help out Jokic? Because I think that he can win another one by himself, or just with requisite help. And so I'm thinking one of those is probably going to be in game 3 or game 4. Can Murray have a game? Hasn't been good so far. Can he have a game in this series? We're going to find out, because if he can, then this thing gets to a coin flip game 7 really, really quickly. And curious to see whether Denver can do it again at that point. That would be wild. All right, folks, I think that is going to do it for this episode of Pickaxe and Roll. Brought to you by good friends here at Mile High Sports. Thank you so much for tuning into the show. Please hit that like button, hit that subscribe button on the way out. Denver plays on Friday. I'll be back with the podcast on Saturday. Going to be very, very interesting to see where Denver goes from here. Everybody have a good day. I will talk to you guys very soon.